Master Duel has a lot of cards Konami has deemed too powerful for the TCG. On this series, we will be taking a look at the banned cards in Master Duel and determining if they deserve the ban or are simply overhated. Welcome back to another episode of Is This Card Actually Ban-Worthy, or whatever the hell I'm calling this. We are back with Superheavy Samurai Scarecrow, a card that is banned in the TCG and fully legal in Master Duel because Superheavy Samurai received some different hits. We're going to take a look at whether or not those hits were justified and whether or not this deck can be fully playable in both the TCG and the OCG. We're taking a look at mostly just pure Superheavy Samurai. The thing with Superheavy Samurai is that, well, actually a lot of these banned cards, is the fact that they are synergistic. They have a lot of different decks that you can play them in. With this in particular, we're just going to focus solely on Scarecrow. That being said, there are two other banned cards within this deck, and it is something of note. They are just generically powerful cards. Things like Borreload Savage Dragon as well as Barren Floor are very powerful. Again, generically. We're not really going to talk about those. They are here, but I'm not going to have a dedicated video. Very clearly, these are extremely powerful, and so much so that, yeah, you could ban them, and I wouldn't be surprised. Anyway. Regardless, let's quickly talk about why Superheavy Samurai Scarecrow was specifically banned and what it does in this deck. Superheavy Samurai Scarecrow can't be used as link material, requires any Superheavy Samurai monster, and if you control no spell traps, or sorry, if none of them are in your grave, you can discard a monster in order to target a Superheavy Samurai in the grave and reborn it. On top of that, you can only use that effect once per turn. Notably, why this is so powerful is because it can transfer any material into an additional guy on field. That's pretty much it. But the important thing of this is that it triggers Soul Piercer, which is a limited one card in Master Duel that says if this card is sent from field to the grave, you can add a Superheavy Samurai monster from your deck to your hand. This in tandem with things like Baron, Apollosa, and the like make it so that Superheavy Samurai has the ability to make a very powerful end board off of singular cards, and to search out a myriad of their own cards, thinning the deck and allowing them to potentially draw later on in the combo into more hand traps. So as you can see here, we are playing a ton of hand traps to draw for our combo. Things like Valor, Droll, Ash, and Bell are very powerful, in addition to the regular end board. Now, Superheavy Samurai has lost one important aspect of its end board, Apollosa. This is a very important card for a lot of these big combo decks. So, how does this deck fare now? We're going to take a look at that. First and foremost, let's just do the explanation, or the card by card. Starting off with the Superheavy Samurais, we're playing 3 apiece of Motorbike, which searches any of your Super Heavies, the Wagon, which searches specifically the equips, and then 3 of the Wakaushi. All 3 of these are incredible starters and incredible extenders. They're very solid. We're also playing 3 Soul Peacemaker, which gives us the ability to tribute to summon out another one of our guys. So you just tribute a Superheavy Samurai in order to summon out another one from deck. Very useful. It basically tributes any of the other names. Stealth is just a free special summon. Soul Piercer searches a whole bunch of cards. We would play 3 if we could. We can't. Scales reborns a guy from grave, and if your opponent has more monsters than you can special summon it for free. Soul Gaia Booster is a very powerful card as well, because it can equip and then special summon itself from the equip zone, which is very nice. Most of the equips don't have the ability to do that. On top of that, it also has the ability to make the card it's equipped to a tuner. That does come up occasionally. And then we are also playing 2 of the Monk Big Benkai, which just searches out another guy off of the Wakaushi effect. It's very nice. It also has application with other Superheavy Samurai, but mostly you're going to use it using the Wakaushi. As for the rest of the cards, we are playing a few other bricks in here that are searchable. Gearbox as well as Tunneler can be searched off of the Ballista, which allow you to then draw additional cards. It's very powerful. We also have the Regulus, which can be searched off of the effect of Genius. Again, pretty solid, just giving you that additional guy that you can use as a negation. On top of that, you can equip a Soul Peacemaker or a Soul Piercer, which then, if sent to the graveyard, gets an additional search. So it's just additional recursion and stuff like that. The rest of it is just hand traps, as previously mentioned. We also get the ability to play things like Gamma and Delta, due to the fact that most of our starts involve things like Wakaushi or Motorbike, which are starts that don't actually have a monster on field for you to start playing the game. So yeah, we get a like Gamma our opponent or Delta or something of that nature. As for the extra deck, it's pretty simple. We're playing a bunch of level 8 Synchros, including the Superheavy Samurai one. So Omega, Borreload Savage, Excel Synchron. We're also playing a few targets for the Excel Synchron with Baron and Dispotter. We're also playing 1 rank 8 in Dugaris. It's fairly useful. Yeah, just drawing more cards, drawing into more hand traps. That's the idea. And then we're playing it 2 Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow, alongside a Genius, Cleafort Genius, to search out, as previously mentioned, Regulus. We're also playing IP Masquerena, SP Little Knight, and I was originally playing the WP, but Gorgon is just better. And then 1 Ancient Gear Ballista. That's it for the deck. Let's hop into the replays and show you how this deck performed. Alrighty, here we are going first, and our hand is pretty solid. Let's see what we can accomplish here. Drawing these Soul Piercer is very solid. So we're going to start off here with our Bike in order to grab up the Wakaushi. Wakaushi effect is going to activate, scaling the Big Benkai in order to special summon. We then can, since we already have the Soul Piercer, we can just add a Gaia booster instead. But we're going to trigger a whole bunch of monsters here. Scaling back, searching another guy, and reborning the Bike. Now we can go into Baron. This is generally what we want to do. Now we're going to Pen Summon here. Now, to be fair, I did kind of mess this up because what I should have done is gone for the Gaia booster to special summon itself, and then gone for Baron. Bit of a mistake on my part. Yeah, I do have to use up the Pendulum Summon when I shouldn't have had to. This cuts off the Cleafort Genius line because it specifically requires 2 monsters to be summoned at the same time to these zones, so you basically have to Pen Summon in order to get that, but it's not that big of a deal. We reborn a guy and then go into the Link 1 pitching in order to reborn another guy, and now we can go into the Ballista. Ballista effect is going to activate, chain blocking the Piercer as well. I probably should have. It doesn't really matter. We do grab the Stealth Ninja, then we're going to search out Tunneler, and then activate the effect of our Wagon, which I previously hadn't activated, to grab up another Peacemaker. Peacemaker effect is going to summon the Wakaushi, which is another tuner. Then we're going to tribute the Ballista so that I can go into IP Masquerena, and put Tunneler into grave. Out comes Borreload Savage Dragon as well. We're going to equip a guy to it, special summon out just the ninja so that we have the ability to utilize it with IP Masquerena. Then we're going to shuffle back 5 of our guys in order to draw 2 cards, and we draw Ash Blossom, which is fine. I also elect to equip the Peacemaker because it does actually have an effect while it's equipped, where the opponent can only attack the monster it's equipped to. So that's the idea there. My opponent is going to go for the Ketu. I negate foolishly with Borreload Savage Dragon. This is just a mistake, straight up. I should have ashed just inherently. This does say activate 1 Ketu, and I thought that Borreload Savage Dragon negated effects. It doesn't. It negates activations, so that's a mistake on my part. If they had a second Ketu, I'd have to use another removal spell on it. Oops. Anyway. They're going to go for the Albaz. I'm going to go for the Baron here, negating its effect. Now we're going to go for the WP Fancy Ball so that we have the ability to negate some other interaction from the opponent, right? Because this says when your opponent activates a monster effect on field or on grave, you can negate. So that's the idea there. However, luckily we did draw the Ash Blossom for the Rahu, and my opponent sees the writing on the wall and concedes. Yeah, that's one of the benefits, again, of this deck, being able to draw into those hand traps after thinning the deck a whole bunch. Alrighty, here we are once again going first, and once again, we start off with the Motorbike. Hip Hip Hooray. We're going to activate its effect, add it to the hand the Wakaushi, and then you've seen it before. Out comes Wakaushi for the Big Benkai. Add the Soul Piercer into Stardust Dragon, Soul Piercer, and Wakaushi in sequence so that we can add back the guy, add back the Motorbike, search out the Soul Piercer. And this time I actually do make the correct play, summon out the Gaia Booster, and now we can make the Baron. Here we can link off into the Scrap Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow, bringing back the Soul Piercer by pitching a card. Now we can equip and summon out the Wagon. Wagon effect is going to grab the Gaia. Notably, again, this can be used again so that we can make a tuner. We're going to grab the Box as well as the Ninja here, and then Box is going to grab up the Tunneler. We're going to special summon the Ninja to go for Genius. I do summon the Genius this time. Dear Lanta, I said actually way too many times there. Anyway, out comes Doug. Doug effect is going to activate after searching Regulus. We have 3 hand traps in hand. Make the IP Masquerena. Activate the Tunneler. We're going to draw 2 additional cards as well. Crazy. I think I draw Ash and like another... Yeah, we draw Scales here, which is funny. Notably, I didn't I actually put back the Soul Piercer, so we don't have it for the Regulus because I'm stupid, but alas, out comes Regulus. And this is generally what we have. So we have Nibiru and a whole bunch of other things. My opponent's going to reveal that they are on the K9 cards. Out comes the Mad Love. Sure, that's fine. Out comes Vanquish Soul. Vanquish Soul effect is going to activate, or the Field Spell effect is going to activate. We're going to go for the SP Little Knight. We're going to banish the Field Spell. Just don't want to deal with that. Out comes the Rock. I don't really know what I'm doing here. They go for the effect of the Sticky Soul, which I believe I Ash here. So we Ash this, and then they activate the Called By, which I promptly Go Spell, and then they activate the Rock, and I tag out the Rock. I don't know what I'm doing there. That was just silly of me. It literally doesn't accomplish anything. Anyway, out comes the Raisin effect. They're going to activate its effect. I'm going to Baron there. I know that they still have the Azuna, but Azuna's not really going to do anything in the face of Regulus. And if they did have another extender, like for example a Jokul or something of that nature, we can also just negate that, and then yeah, they can have access to their Azuna, but that doesn't really accomplish a whole lot. I guess it could have done some stuff there, so there's that. It could have been dangerous, but for the most part, we ended up taking it. Alrighty, here we are once again going first, and dear Atlanta, this is exactly what Super Heavy Samurai is wont to do. Look at that, 1 card starter and 4 hand traps. You'll love to see it. This is exactly the Super Heavy Samurai that I know and love. Anyway, my opponent's gonna go for the Perulia. That's fine. I am less concerned about Perulia. We're going to go for our Big Ben K here. We're going to grab the Soul Piercer. We're going to normal summon it. We're going to go for the Scarecrow here. Activate the effect of the Soul Piercer to grab the Super Heavy Samurai Peacemaker. Pitch a card. Bring back the Soul Piercer. Summon out the Soul Peacemaker. Activate its effect in order to grab the Wagon. Wagon effect is going to activate to grab another one of the Soul Piercer. And that's kind of an issue. Anyway, we're going to go for the Borreload Savage Dragon and just kind of pass on this. It's not great, but again, it's Omni Negate, 3 hand traps, and full extension on the following turn into a 5-card hand. So there's a chance we have the ability to play the game. They're going to attempt to draw 2. I'm going to not allow that. Then they go for the second effect in order to add a MST. I'm like, sure, that's fine. And then they droplet with no monsters, so I just negate the droplet. To be fair, it more or less accomplished what they wanted, so not that big of a deal. Notably, this is in draw phase, which kind of sucks because it can't Veiler. Had they had Corrosia, we would have been good. Luckily, they didn't. They go for the Eldam, we negate it, and at this point, the game is over. They just concede the game. Coolio. Good game. Alrighty, so how good is Scrap Iron? I keep wanting to call it Scrap. How good is Super Heavy Samurai Scarecrow? The answer is, it's fine. Mostly what this deck was good at doing was making Apollosa Baron most effectively, and backing that up with a bunch of hand traps. It was the most powerful 1-card combo for hand trap deck at the time. You just played a whole bunch of hand traps, and then you blew past your opponent with really powerful 1-card combos. The thing is, the deck still technically can do that. The problem is that it's way more susceptible to interruptions now for several reasons. 1, Gamma's at 1. This matters substantially for this deck specifically, because now you can't Gamma a Droll or something of that nature if you were to search off of like a motorbike, right? Which means that you are a lot more susceptible to that form of interaction. So there's that. On top of that, we also have Fool Loss now in the game, whereas previously, to be fair, previously it was way worse with Maxi, but Fool Loss is also up there as well in terms of a stopper for the archetype. The other 2 notable things are specifically Apo, which is banned, which I have to find. There it is, Apo, which is banned. So there's that. And the other thing is Bagoo. Baguska is also banned. Here's the thing, Apo is better for its end board, but Baguska specifically being banned matters way more for this deck, because with Baguska being banned, we now have to play fully into things like Fualasa and Maxi. So if you do end up getting Maxied or Fuad or something like that, and you don't have the out because you can't play things like Called By or Cross Out, you do just kind of die to those cards a lot more, because you can't just make Baguska. You can't just make Plan B, right? You can't just sit on it and be like, okay, cool, do you have like Imperm or something to deal with this, right? You don't just get that kind of check against the opponent, which means that you do have to fairly play into, not fairly, but reasonably play into things like that, drawing the opponent's cards, and that does hinder the deck quite substantially, right? Also, even things like Perulia are also very powerful against this deck, because a lot of times you are actually special summoning from the hand, right? There's a lot of special summons from the hand, most notably the Pendulum summon gives a card, but your normal summons and stuff like that. I guess you're not special summoning a ton from the hand, but there's a few things, right? Tunneler special summons itself from hand, Regulus, Stealth, etc. So there's a few things there as well that Perulia specifically interacts with as well. And then, of course, Meowls also is pretty bad against this deck because of the Reborn off of the Scarecrow and stuff like that. So, for the most part, what I will say is that this deck is, or more specifically, this card is A-okay. It could come back in the TCG and it would also be fine, because a lot of the things that made this deck so powerful have been removed, right? So yeah, this card could absolutely come back in the TCG, would do nothing. In Master Duel, could we see the release of Soul Piercer? And the answer is, yeah, honestly, I think it's fine, even if they were to have full access to Soul Piercer. Again, the problem was that this deck had a lot of really solid contingencies and a really frustrating end board full of basically just negation. And it was backed up with a bunch of hand traps, making it so that even if you had something like a Droplet or a, what is the other one? Dark Ruler No More or something of that nature, you still had to contend with 2 to 3 interactions from the hand, which tended to be too much. That being said, that's less the case now, right? Because you're not having to contend with Baguska, you don't have to contend with Apo, you don't have to contend with a bunch of these other problematic cards. It still can make a fairly strong end board, but meaningful interactions such as Droll and Nibiru are more likely to resolve, or at the very least, more likely to actually matter, which makes it way more reasonable. There's a lot more that you can do in order to basically combat this deck. So all in all, I think it's fine. You could fully release this deck and it'd be A-okay. As long as other things like Gamma and Baguska remain on the list, it's A-okay. That's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys did indeed enjoy. If you did, like is very much so appreciated. And remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye.